Let me give you an example of outside-in behavior. For example, a simple thing that happens in, say, engineering college or in one of these college hostels is that you are given a deadline. So when you are given the deadline, you are working very, very hard. And when the deadline is there, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, ye karo, wo karo, ye karo, wo karo. Next day the deadline is gone. There is no deadline. So now let me forget about it. Let me chill. So which means that actually my work is going through huge sinusoidal curve. And when some days I am trying to increase it and some days I am decreasing. So what's wrong with that? The first thing that is wrong with that is it means that your work is determined by outside pressure and not by inward aspiration. Any work has to be driven by inner aspiration rather than by outside work alone, outside pressure alone. So to respond, to react or to act under pressure is actually in that sense not a sign of a free person. The ability to cope with pressure is great, but to cope with pressure as a way of life is a very dumb thing to do, right? That means we aren't getting something else right. We aren't getting our way of looking at a problem right. Unless you simply choose on to take on a lot of work so that you are stretched all the time, that's a separate problem. Now the point that I am trying to make is that outside in is not only about negative things, it's also about things like acting under pressure and not being able to act in a consistent way and week after week, month after month being able to stretch oneself and grow, and climb up a mountain step by step by step. Now what are the consequences of that? The consequences of that are twofold. The first consequence is very simple, simply this. That if you are operating under a pressure, you are all the time compromising and cutting at the edges. There are things that you want to do which you don't do. There are things that you need to think about which you can't think about. Because you are operating under pressure, then you say, "ठीक है, अभी के लिए ये कर लेंगे. Let's get the job done and go." There is no space for engaging deeply with a thought to let it actually to go deeper. There was space earlier, but at that time when space was done, because there was no deadline, then we actually do not feel the need to plunge deep and engage with that problem. So that we are waiting for outside pressure to engage with something. But when the time for engagement comes and there is outside pressure, at that time when we are doing it, it's a wrong time to do it, because at that time your closure is more important than perceiving a deeper or a more important idea there. Am I making sense? Look at the other problem with it. The minute I not operate in that way and only wait for pressure for me to operate, it means I am not going to do things like read. I am not going to do things like actually try to know more about the practices that I am talking about. There is an enormous amount of reading material here, but there is no space, mental space also to go into it, simply because actually there is so much pressure all the time otherwise acting. So in that sense we need to understand outside in comes in many forms. This is one form of outside in. The worst and most important part of outside in behavior which I want to point out to you and for this group is the fact that when I am faced with a problem, I need to see it head on and actually be willing to look at that problem and discover a solution within. The recognition, that idea, that knowledge I am going to create. I am a creator of knowledge, and that knowledge is not coming from outside. Not creativity, but a creator of knowledge. Outside in can come also in the form of saying that, what is quality? So can I actually take a product to a level of quality that meets my integrity? Can I have a deeper integrity to quality which says that this doesn't meet a deeper level of integrity of what I consider to be great stuff? It's not cool enough for me. That is an inner integrity. That's not an outer integrity. So that's also outside. If you do not display integrity to your highest conception of quality. Can I every time produce a product that in my view, in my honest inner view, I am able to say that I have reached the very best that I could do at this point in time? Can I have exhausted myself in that process? Because only when you've exhausted yourself in the creation process are you actually in a position where you can jump a level. Can you see that? If you've not exhausted, you are not physically exhausted, but exhausted yourself in integrity terms. I have really given it my best, but this is all I could do. And let me tell you why it is important. It is important because it is transformative. Because that is when work, so it is not about working very hard. Sometimes when we stretch ourselves for a deadline, we also exhaust ourselves, and therefore there is some amount of transformation that does take place there. But can I do it without having to exhaust myself in deadlines? Can I exhaust myself in reaching, and that new type of exhaustion, which is the exhaustion of trying to reach the highest level of quality in oneself, is a good exhaustion. It's actually a renewal. It's actually a strengthening of oneself. It's not a, it doesn't exhaust you actually, it actually re-energizes you. It's like a great filmmaker, when he makes something beautiful, he may have really worked hard at it or struggled with his mind at it, but he knows at the end of it, and he's energized for years thereafter. He felt this is something that I really moved one more level in doing stuff like that. These are evolutionary values. These are values organized around personal evolution. So that we are never bound by our own thoughts. So that we are freer and freer and freer day by day.